I know, sis, it sounds crazy. He thinks this Babadook thing came to life out of the pop-up book. Well, you don't have to be rude about it. Jeez. Hello? What the? What was that? Oh, yeah, it's just a code. It's not real. Frank, Duke, baby. Oh my God, the Frankie-Duke. Duke. No, grief. What's up, guys? Welcome to FoundFlicks. On this Ending Explained, we'll be looking at the winner of our last vote, the Babadook, about a mother and son failing to cope with a tragedy that leads to a supernatural force coming to life from the pages of a pop-up book. But first, let's vote on the next Ending Explained. Your first choice is Shutter Island, a psychological thriller full of twists, following a detective who is investigating a psychiatric facility after one of the patients goes missing. And your second choice is Mama, about two young girls who are fostered by an unknown entity which follows them to their new suburban home. Make sure to vote in the comments or in the poll in the community tab on which one you'd like to see me do. And you can send me video requests of any kind on my social media accounts at FoundFlicks. Now, when it comes to explaining the Babadook, there are a lot of facets to the film to consider. Perhaps the most important aspect to analyze when explaining the movie is the version of reality in which it takes place, which is a hyper-reality. Similar to the monster that comes from a children's book, the world of the film as well is more like that of a storybook reality, because the entire world and details to the story are all about being an expression of our mother Amelia's emotions, certainly inspired by German expressionist films where all emotions are externalized. This is seen throughout the film, most notably in the family's home itself. This subdued, bland environment is an outward expression of Amelia's own internal feelings. And this follows suit with every aspect to Amelia's life scene. At the mall, trying to spend some time to herself, she can't help but see a happy couple necking in the car in the parking garage, reminding her bluntly of what she has lost. And there's her sister Claire, who unlike her appears to have a perfectly balanced life, acting in antithesis to Amelia's, especially as her life spirals further out of control. And since the film's world is hyper-reality, a representation of Amelia herself, that's why something like a monster coming from a pop-up book does fit into the reality that has been created, which was the entire point. By leaving it out of a standard domestic setting, everything becomes more formidable and scary. So the film overall is an exploration of not dealing with a tragedy in a heightened way. Our opening scene has Mother Amelia dreaming of the tragic event that the entire movie story hinges upon. Nearly 7 years ago, Amelia was being driven to the hospital by her husband Oscar to give birth to their son Samuel. But unfortunately, along the way, they had a car crash that resulted in Oscar's death. And this incident had a major impact on Amelia. So major, in fact, that she completely refuses to acknowledge or deal with her emotions about the crash, attempting instead to completely ignore them. But this creates its own problems, in particular with her now nearly 7-year-old son Samuel. Due to her not dealing with her grief, she is in a way incapable of loving her son, unable to separate him emotionally from her husband's death. She is generally cold and unfeeling towards Sam, and just doesn't seem to like him very much at all. And honestly, he is annoying as shit, so I can't really blame her. But his erratic, strange behavior is actually her own doing. By not accepting him and loving him, this causes the child to be difficult and have increasing behavioral problems. Sam is also obsessed with monsters, and he has frequent nightmares, needing to have Amelia check under the bed and in the closet. But of course, there's nothing there. Seemingly all of it in Sam's imagination. The way the film treats Sam at first is that something is wrong with him, and truly it is Sam that is the hero of the story due to his pure innocence. He didn't choose to be born, but he still does love his mother because of course he does. He doesn't have any of the baggage that she does regarding that day. And regardless of her saying the monsters aren't real, Sam wants to be prepared to defend his mother from these potential threats, and quite craftily makes a rock-launching catapult backpack and crossbow for this purpose. Sam is seen in further instances acting out, getting suspended from school, or spouting off about his dead dad to strangers at the grocery store, all to Amelia's unending annoyance. Why can't he just behave, she wonders, as she still doesn't understand why he is acting the way he is, since she still has completely repressed the emotions, especially grief, tied to Oscar's death. And these emotions are pressed down so much by her that they actually create more problems. It's by repressing her emotions that allows the Babadook to come into their home. After their routine of checking under the bed and closet for monsters, Sam selects a bedtime story. This time a book that seems to have appeared from nowhere, titled Mr. Babadook. They get a few pages into the deranged pop-up book, reading about how if you see him in your room at night, you won't sleep a wink, and you're going to wish you were dead. That's enough for Amelia to stop reading, and already Sam is completely freaked out by the book, screaming his head off. She checks the book out later, attempting to determine its origin, but there's no author or anything written on it. So she stows the book out of sight, hoping that's the end of it. But of course it's not, as Sam becomes more obsessed with the idea of the Babadook, believing that the creature from the book has manifested in their home. We see him still on edge, staring into his closet, getting ready to toss a ball inside. We don't see what transpires, but moments later he interrupts Amelia in the middle of trying to pleasure herself, saying the Babadook is in his closet. Frustrated, she tells him that it's just a book and to go back to sleep. He is unwavering in his belief about the creature, freaking out his cousin when Amelia dumps him on his sister while she goes to work. She matter-of-factly tells Sam that if the book was real, then we would see the Babadook. And Sam recounts lines from the book, that he wants to scare you first, then you can see him, and will then creep into your room and eat your insides. Amelia has had it, punishing Sam with no birthday party, no presents, cake, or nothing. Oh man, harsh. Later back at home, Amelia finds Sam down in the basement playing pretend, detailing how he will trap and kill the Babadook. She confronts him, telling him he isn't supposed to be in the basement, which is where she has stashed all of her dead husband's belongings. In a way, this represents how she has tried to ignore her feelings, locking up her husband's things in the basement, keeping them out of sight and hopefully out of mind. This same could be said as to how Amelia has dealt with the tragedy, by locking it deep in a part of her mind and doing her best to completely ignore it. Now the door has been literally and figuratively opened, seeing Amelia gathering up her husband's scattered music sheets and records, and clutching a picture of the two of them tightly close to her. This must be the first time in quite a while she's seen Oscar's things, and already she is beginning to be forced to deal with her repressed emotions, which also means that the Babadook will be making his presence known even further. As from what we can determine, the spirit is drawn to Amelia by her unresolved emotions, and it's due to this that it can potentially be let in by her. And soon we get our first look at this. Amelia sits alone at night. Electricity blinks in the room, and upstairs Sam is breathing heavily, looking again into his open closet. Amelia hears a loud bang and scream, running upstairs, finding the closet knocked over onto the floor, and Sam hiding under the bed, terrified, screaming, "Don't let it in," over and over. She then tries to dispose of the book by tearing the pages apart and throwing it in the garbage. But as Sam was worried about, it's already been let in by Amelia's grief. Shadows pass by upstairs, accompanied with crackling electricity, and later hearing a knocking, she ignores it, hiding under the covers, and a shadow passes right over her. The Duke is in the house! The two visit Amelia's sister for her daughter Ruby's birthday, and during a conversation between the sisters, they lay out more clearly Amelia's unresolved issues. Claire says it's been 7 years since Oscar's death. Why can't she move on? Amelia argues that she has, since she doesn't think about it and doesn't talk about it. But that is pretty much the exact opposite of moving on, since it's repressing it for so long that it's causing it to boil over now and create all of her current problems. Afterwards in the car, Sam apparently sees something next to him, though we don't, screaming, "Get out!" and starts kind of seizing up in fear. Increasingly concerned, she seeks out medical help. The doctor saying he is suffering from anxiety, but that most of his tests are normal. Desperate, Amelia asks for some kind of medication to help him sleep, as at this point neither of them have had a normal sleep in weeks, due to his increasingly volatile behavior and overwhelming fear of the Babadook. Luckily, the medication works wonders, and both are able to get a full night's rest for a change. Amelia hopeful that once Sam gets some much needed rest, that'll be the last she'll be hearing of the Babadook. Later, she goes downstairs, hearing a knock at the front door, but no one is there. But down on the ground waiting for her is the Mr. Babadook book, the same one that she tore up and threw away, now reassembled. Damn that crafty Duke! She reads more pages than seen previously, giving us a look at the rest of our own story that will play out, as the story in the book mirrors Amelia's. And the connection between dealing with Amelia's grief and the monster is clear in the book's writing, saying, "I'll make you a bet. The more you deny, the stronger I get. The Babadook growing right under your skin. The more you try to repress these emotions, the stronger they actually become, as we have already seen beginning to occur." She flips through more pages, giving us prophetic looks at future steps to Amelia's story, seeing the woman strangling a boy and then slitting her own throat. Well, hopefully she can avoid that outcome. First step, burn the book. That'll get rid of it, probably. She tries to talk to Claire about it, but she's understandably not interested in hearing more crazy crap from her sister, and after hanging up, Amelia gets another call from the Babadook himself. This is her first encounter with a spirit, and now she too begins to consider the idea of the Babadook being real, or at the very least that someone is stalking the two of them. This finally sends her to the police, describing the book and its bizarre images to the cop. He wants to see the book, but since she burned it, there's no evidence or much they can do about it. He then notices her ash-covered hands, and to him and to us as well, it appears that what is happening is Amelia is starting to lose her mind, even being creeped out by a hat and coat that resemble those worn by the Babadook in the corner. The movie plays with our belief of Amelia's state of mind at many points, starting soon after, when at home she sees bugs coming from behind the fridge, pouring out of a gash in the wall. But when the Department of Community Services show up with papers about Samuel to get sorted, she shows them the wall and the hole is gone. Or the reality is more likely that it was never really there in the first place. Uh-oh, mommy is going crazy! Later, while Amelia is doing dishes, we get our first glimpse at the Duke in the flesh, seen standing behind her neighbor watching TV. But when she looks back, he has vanished. She won't have to wait that long to see her new pal again though. When in bed, Amelia hears metal scraping, and the door creeps open to the room on its own. She hears odd chittering and other strange noises. It moves to the ceiling in an odd, strange staccato way, then lifts up his arms, flying down at Amelia, aiming right for her mouth. It appears that the Babadook has possessed Amelia, as her behavior becomes markedly different after this. Sam comes in to talk to his mom, saying he needs something to eat to take his pill, and she kind of ignores him at first before telling him to stop talking. The same pattern the Babadook speaks in, then angrily yells if he's hungry to go and eat shit. So yeah, Amelia is definitely not herself. At this point, she is struggling to deal with the grief that has been pouring out and is currently losing herself to it and the spirit. Though she isn't totally lost yet, and afterwards she does apologize. But now Sam is clearly frightened of his mother, cowering in the corner and moving away when she tries to touch him. She tries to make it up to him by taking him out to eat, but on the way back, Amelia sees cockroaches, followed by the Babadook calling out to her, and she loses control of the car, swerving to the wrong side of the road, running right into another car. And when he tries to talk to her, she just drives off. So we see that Amelia is becoming more than a little mentally unhinged, taking a bath in her clothes and sleeping with her husband's violin. Sam knows that something is wrong with his mom and calls their neighbor in hopes of getting her help. But Amelia gets the phone from him, telling her that everything is fine. She's angry at Sam for calling her, and he apologizes, saying the Babadook made her crash the car, which she writes off as something that he made up in his stupid little head. She leaves with a knife, locking up every access point to the house, basically locking the two out from the rest of the world, though she's not really in the best mental state to take care of things. And the events seen hereafter sort of further blur between dream and reality, tying into that overall heightened fairy tale style to the world, with supernatural elements becoming more dominant. One late night while flipping through channels, Amelia comes across a news report about a woman who stabbed her son to death and was shot herself by officers, and sees her own ghostly face looking out from the window. Electricity crackles and glass shatters, darkening the room. She looks over to the couch and Sam is gone, gone, suddenly seeing him with his eyes closed next to her. He tells her to wake up, then follows him down into the fateful basement, finding Oscar waiting for her down there. But this manifestation of Oscar is actually the Babadook, informing Amelia of what he is after. "We can be together," he says. "I just need you to bring me the boy." She slowly backs away, the room growing darker as his voice becomes more distorted, repeating to "bring me the boy." Amelia runs away, hiding in a room, blocking the door with a chair, but she's not safe here either. She crawls away, hearing monstrous groaning and growling coming from behind her, telling herself it isn't real. Then the Duke shrieks, descending upon her, and her pupils grow large. By continuing to deny her feelings, she has let the Babadook in, and now it has her fully under its control. Seeing Amelia follow the character glimpsed earlier in the book, wanting to kill her own son, first seen snapping Bugsy the dog's neck, dropping it to the ground like a limp noodle. Sam sees this unfold from above and gets chased by his mom, locking himself in his room. She tries to talk to him through the walls, saying Bugsy is hurt, but he won't let her in, so she gets angry, screaming, "Let me in, you little shit!" grabbing on the door and kicking it open. "Whoa, nice moves, lady." She shrieks, floating across the floor towards Sam, looking quite terrified. She tells him he doesn't know how many times I wished it was you and not him that died. Ooh, that's pretty rough. Unfortunately, Amelia is distracted when the neighbor shows up wanting to check in on the two, since she knows this time of year is especially tough for them. This is another specific reason that all this is coming to a head now, as they are almost now exactly at the anniversary of Oscar's death. And after Mrs. Roach leaves, Amelia appears back to normal, saying she hasn't been good since his dad died, and admits that she's sick and needs help. Well, that's pretty much fact. She tells Sam she wants to make it up to him, saying, "I want you to meet your dad." Putting her hand around the boy's throat, he stabs her in the leg, escaping to the basement, with her following right behind, getting tripped on a wire set up by Sam, sending her down the stairs and knocking her out. Now we see why Sam is truly the hero of the movie, due to his purity and innocence. And even though his mom is totally nuts, he still loves her no matter what. He tells her that he knows she doesn't love him, but that it's the Babadook's fault, and that he will always love her. She screams, breathing heavily and convulsing, as he tells her she has to get it out. She gets an arm free, try to choke Sam once again, and he softly touches her face in response. She tosses him off with odd otherworldly movements like that of the monster, and flips over, vomiting up a bunch of black liquid, thudding to the floor. Now that they have confronted the root of the problem of their relationship, that she can't love Sam because of her unresolved grief, she now has the ability to deal with the monster, which confronts her once again with her husband's image, reliving the crash through his words, and seeing his head get cut in half. Amelia falls to the floor weeping when seeing this, hearing the Duke hissing. "You are nothing," she says, and the room begins to rattle. The Duke stretches his arms out in front of her, the rattling becoming more intense. "This is my house, you are trespassing," she yells at the creature that shrieks and growls. But she is unwavering. Sam is lifted into the air and she grabs him, roaring, and the Babadook retreats, the rumbling suddenly stopping, and the monster appears again in front of them, but falls to the ground as an empty hat and cape, yet heard still groaning on the floor. And it shrieks to life, flying and rapidly darting through the house, going into the basement, getting locked inside. The house silent, Amelia grabs Samuel in her arms, cradling him close. And after this experience, Amelia has finally dealt with all of her previously repressed emotions tied to her husband's death, unable until now to unlink that tragedy from the birth of her son. But now we see that she loves Samuel for the little weirdo that he is, finally giving him his very own birthday party, and kind of symbolizing that this day is now his day, something that she wasn't even able to consider the thought of before. And we see that Sam is the same kid as before, playing with his crossbow and blurting out about his dad being dead at inappropriate times. But now Amelia doesn't punish him or get annoyed at his behavior. She accepts him for who he is. Later, the two are seen collecting worms into a bucket. She enters the basement, setting down the bowl of worms. The Duke hisses and growls, nearly knocking her over, but she regains her balance and is able to calm the creature down, and it backs away, the bowl of worms snatched away into the dark corner. Naturally, this all correlates to her own feelings that she's been struggling with throughout the film. Though as we see, grief never really goes away. The emotions are still there, a a part of her forever. But now they have been dealt with in a healthy way and should no longer be such an issue for Amelia. She rejoins Samuel, the two seen happy together, Amelia with a smile on her face. So is the Babadook a real supernatural spirit or just a metaphor for Amelia's unresolved emotions? I prefer to believe that it is actually both. Obviously it represents her emotions, which take her over once they start to spill out. But I also think that it is due to this that the spirit is manifested at their home. Based on the book, it is drawn specifically to unresolved emotions or grief, which is similar to many spirits in cinema. When there's unresolved feelings about death or lingering feelings in a place, that tends to be like a beacon to vengeful spirits like the Babadook. So in the end, I like the idea that the Duke has been conquered by Amelia emotionally and as a spirit thanks to the power of love. As cheesy as that sounds, but that's what happened. And now they have him as a kind of pet or something, locked up in the basement and occasionally fed worms by Amelia. Who doesn't like worms? Hey Frankaduke, just wanted to say thanks in a way for helping me deal with all those unresolved emotions. Really appreciate it. I didn't think you'd be much for worms, so I went and got you some tacos. Thought that was more your style. Hope you like them. Tacos, tacos, tacos! All right, everybody, that'll wrap it up for my in-depth analysis and explanation of the Babadook. What did you think about the movie and its ending? Do you think the Babadook is real or a part of Amelia's psyche? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. Thanks for watching FoundFlicks. See you next time.